Welcome to the world of Orbis, a large world filled with variety of different biomes, creatures, deities and people. This video is about the common knowledge of the world. You will hear information that gives you a good idea of what the world is all about. With all that said, let's start at the beginning. Coepi, the beginning. Very long ago, in the time before the oldest ancients, two elder gods came together to create the world that we call Orbis. Tempus, the elder god of time, and Locus, the elder god of space. When they created Orbis, the world was completely empty. No mountains, no water, no warmth, no cold, no wind, and no life. The elder gods decided to create lesser gods that would shape the earth. Nar, god of fire, Mayan, goddess of water, Ard, god of earth, Re, god of wind, and Tabia, goddess of nature. The five lesser gods and goddess all were given a temple in the first places on the world, which happened to be all in Coepi. That is why people call Coepi the beginning. There are still so many mysteries to be unraveled, for not everything is explained about the elder gods and lesser gods of Coepi. Coepi is a giant hot desert, filled with nothing but sand and stone. A lot of archaeologists find it strange, for this place is where all elements were shaped from. Nobody knows why Coepi is or became a desert. That is still a huge mystery. The most common folk that live in Coepi are humans, Genasi, and Loxodon. Coepi is a place with many types of different people, because of all the explorers and archaeologists that are looking to unravel the truth. There are also a lot of desertees looking to rob explorers, archaeologists, and the temples that are scurried with and within the sands of Coepi. There lurk several deadly creatures within the sands of Coepi, like giant scorpions that could impale you with one swift strike, or the desert sludge, monsters that lay beneath the sands that drag their prey down and eat them alive. You also have a lot of elementals of all kinds that protect the temples, like guardians, against any unwanted presence. With all these deadly creatures, Coepi also has your normal sand animals that you would expect, like a camel, or as some call them, the desert horse. They are quite handy for traversing through the harsh and hot deserts of Coepi. Mystaja, the birthplace of magic. When the two elder gods created Orbis, another elder god, or should I say goddess, took interest in the beautiful world they had created. This elder goddess is Medeas, the elder goddess of magic. She touched Orbis with her finger and created the source of magic, a giant glowing orb that levitates above the ground. The place she happened to touch is the place we call today as Mystaja. People also believe that Medes also created the elves from the source of magic, although there's no proof that that happened. Mystaja is quite a unique and magic place, a forest-like biome with enormous fungus, plants, and all kind of weird abnormal nature. The sky in Mystaja always glows, filled with purple magical clouds. The most common folk that live in Mystaja are elves, gnomes, and turtles. The elves that follow the faith of Medeus believe that they are created from her hand, and therefore they are the most superior race in the entire world. They also don't like outsiders, because outsiders violate the beautiful birthplace of magic with their nasty, dirty hands and feet. There are a lot of magical creatures living in Mystaja, the most common being the Myconid, a tribe of fungus-like people that live underground. They use glowing plants and roots to light up the Underdark. Pixies are also very common, and are almost as much as pranksters as the gnomes. They live in flowers. As you can hear, there are not many deadly creatures in Mystaja, except a few uncommon creatures, and surprisingly, the unicorn. Don't let the appearance of the unicorn fool you. They are highly aggressive and very protective of their territory. They are also very fast and can use magic with their horns. Another potential threat is the drow, or as some people call them, the dark elves. They live underground just like the Myconids do, but they don't use any light. They say the drow are evil by nature, but not much conflict has happened between them and the elves. Maybe, in the future, something might go wrong. The Shadow Isles. Isles of Horror and Unknown. The Shadow Isles are 10 small islands where not many living beings have been to. Some were brave enough to venture into the Isles, but never came back. But a small few of them did, claiming to have seen and relived their worst nightmares, and things no living being should ever experience. Almost all of the survivors have gone mad or have killed themselves after the events. Only 3 have remained sane, but do not wish to speak about their experience. Survivors claim that everything is dead, and there is no sign of life. There also appears to be a very thick mist surrounding the isles. Most survivors also claim they have seen structures. They describe them as stone temples. Unknown. How well? Some say they have seen drow or dark elves on the island. Unknown. But most certainly, there should be some kind of ghost and undead roaming around. Wokara, place of the primals. Not much is known about the history, for that is not really important to the people of Wokara. What is important to them is their deity, Kunga, the god of primal survival. Kunga is a god made of many different animals. His head is the head of a lion, which represents courage. His arms are the arms of a gorilla, which represents strength. His hands are the claws of an eagle, which represent precision. His legs are the legs of a cheetah, which represents speed. His feet are the feet of a panther, which represents stealth. And finally, his body is that of a fat hippo, which represents protection and wealthiness, as in being well fed. The embodiment of Kunga is the way of survival in the eyes of many Wokarians. Even though there are many tribes that believe in many different things, most of them share the common belief in Kunga. Wokara is a big jungle with lots of animals and wildlife. There are not many civilized structures because many inhabitants believe that is not the way of primal. The most common structures you will find are huts, made for the survival of the cold jungle nights. The most common folk that live in Wokara are half-orcs, lizard folk, tabaxi, centaur, bugbears, and minotaur. Most of the races are split up in tribes that hunt each other, although some races and tribes go well together. The land of Wokara is filled with wildlife. There are many different animals and creatures like monkeys, jaguars, parrots, crocodiles, snakes, spiders, rhinos, frogs, hippos, and many more. There also exists a variety of monster-like creatures like basilisk, cockatrice, tree ants, carnivorous plants, and many, many more. The Cursedlands. Hell on Earth.
Where there is good, must be bad. Where there is light, must be darkness. Where there is hope, must be despair. Where there is life, must be death.
So argued Morton, the god of death and chaos. He wanted to see the living struggle against life so badly that he took out his own heart of pure evil and planted it into the ground. That place where he planted his heart is also known as the Cursedlands. His heart did many chaotic and evil things, like raising the undead from the ground and opening portals to hellish and evil planes. The evil that the heart summons are not bound to the cursed lands and will kill, torture, conquer, destroy, and consume wherever they please. Now Morton watches from the shadows, as the ones he summoned will bring him pleasure.
Some gods just want to watch the world burn.
The Cursedlands is a destroyed wasteland with massive craters and no sign of life. Although some parts of the land are unique because of the portals that have opened upon the lands. You have the Portal of the Hells, a portal surrounded by lava and hell rock straight from the hells themselves. Devils come out of this portal. Or the Portal of the Chaos Realm, a portal that opens the realm of demons. These are the two most well-known portals that have opened upon the Cursed Lands. There are a few more, but they are unknown to the common folk. None. Although some say evil necromancers travel there to gain artifacts, to boost their powers. All the evil creatures you can think of have walked the Cursed Lands. From the undead, to demons, to devils, to eldritch horrors, even some creatures unknown to the common folk. But perhaps some are brave enough to explore the Cursed Land, although it would not be recommended if you want to make it out alive. Solis, nation of the bright sun. Solis used to be the bridge of evil, for it was the entrance to the rest of the world for all the evil that would walk from the cursed lands. The ancient people used to live in fear against the horrible chaotic evil creatures that would pass upon to their lands and kill and destroy as much as they would desire. Until a miracle happened. A goddess was born out of the sun. Her name is Luxpe, goddess of hope, courage, light, and the sun. She smiled at the ancient people living in Solis and said,
"Take my hope, so you will fall not into darkness. Take my courage, so you can fight against evil. And take my light, so you can burn out all the darkness. For I'll make the sun always shine for you."
The ancient people of Solis took the power of Luxpe and drove away the horrible chaotic evil from their land with the power of the light. Today, Solis is the region of all that is good, filled with clerics and paladins that believe in the goddess of the bright sun. Their goal? To get rid of all evil. Solis is a plains biome with dense forests and mountains. Mostly humans, Aasimar, and some halfling. The halflings that live in Solis live in small villages in peace, doing their own thing, while most humans live in big cities like the capital city of Sanctus, a city with towers and walls fully made of white quarterstone. Within the capital is the White Order. The White Order are an elite group of clerics and paladins who travel the world in search of evil that they will need to destroy to help the innocent. A member of the White Order will always follow the law and help the innocent in need. The White Order also protects the bridge of evil between Solis and the Cursed Lands, so that no evil demons may pass the bridge. Although there are some dangerous creatures in Solis, most of them aren't hostile. Creatures that live in Solis like trolls can be dangerous only if you enter or oppose a threat to their territory. Unfortunately, there are also some creatures in Solis that slipped over the bridge of the Cursed Lands. But like I mentioned before, the White Order is always on the hunt to destroy all that is evil. So although there are evil creatures in Solis, they are not there without any risks. Zandaka, where balance is in all things. When the land of Zandaka was first discovered, it looked like the most beautiful land of them all. Zandaka also had the most unique flora and fauna of all the lands. The land was so perfectly peaceful that a goddess of peace bloomed out of a flower. Her name is Hewa, the goddess of peace. Everything was in harmony until the time of ancient people came around. Many different ancient people would come upon the land and would claim it as their own. They would fight for the lands and disturb the goddess of peace, creating a new god, Senso, the god of war. Hewa and Senso could not connect because war is the true opposite of peace. The once beautiful peaceful lands were now in complete chaos, slowly being ruined by both gods not willing to connect and bring things into harmony. That is when something very special happened. By complete miracle, Hewa and Senso fell in love and created a very special god, Zandaka, god of balance, harmony, and love. He was the one creating the air of love that made the two understand each other and eventually love each other. When Zandaka was born, the ancient people stopped fighting and saw the chaos they had made upon this beautiful land just for their own greed. They also found a balance between war and peace. Zandaka said,
You shall not make war to create chaos and hatred. You will only make war to create peace.
In honor of Zandaka, they named the lands after him. Zandaka isn't as beautiful as it used to be before ancient times, but it's still very beautiful. The unique wildlife resembles your stereotypical Asian landscape. Mostly humans and a few Loxodon and Tortles live in this nation. Most of them respect the way of Zandaka and will protect the nation from all wrongdoers. To keep peace, Zandaka needs a strong army. That army is called the Red Lotus, an army with strong trained elite soldiers and samurai. Their army isn't really big, but each and every single unit is very skilled in the arts of combat. The Red Lotus resembles War, or Senso. Then there are the monks of the Growing Blossom, monks and druids that keep man and nature in harmony. They have temples, but most Growing Blossom monks roam the lands of Zandaka. The Growing Blossom resembles peace, or Hewa. Zandaka has a lot of wildlife like bears, monkeys, pandas, red pandas, badgers, wolves, horses, foxes, and many more. All the animals are a bit different from animals in other regions, like the color of their fur or skin. There are also creatures and monsters living in Zandaka, harmless ones like the kitsune, tanuki, and all kinds of spirits, and dangerous ones like the chimera, tiger dragon, kepas, jurogumo, and many evil spirits. The Greenlands, lands of the free spirit. Back in ancient times there were 4 kingdoms in the Greenlands. In the south you had the Kingdom of Sungrass, a kingdom that was very influenced by Solis and the White Order. In the west you had the Kingdom of Greenest, a kingdom of traders and hunters and monster hunters. In the middle of the Greenlands you had the Kingdom of Whistling, a kingdom ruled by none. Last, in the north, the Kingdom of Gron, a kingdom that was influenced by the Vikings and barbarians of Sovernyorn. There were no wars between those kingdoms, for there was only one problem at hand: the overpopulation of all kinds of mythical monsters. Eventually, there were so many monsters that the kingdoms decided to combine together and unite as the Greenlands under no kings or gods. Nowadays, there are still a lot of monsters, but thanks to uniting in ancient times, there are a lot of organizations with monster hunters that protect the people of the Greenlands. The Greenlands does mostly exist out of plains with some dense forests and mountains. The Greenlands is super diverse with lots of different races. There are so many races living together that people aren't even sure which races are originally from the Greenlands. The most common races in the Greenlands are humans, halflings, elves, half-orcs, gnomes, dwarves, minotaurs, centaurs, kenkus, arokas, genasi, and Goliaths. In summary, the Greenlands is a very diverse place with lots of different people, doing different stuff, preaching different deities. The Greenlands is filled with your typical mythical creatures like the Cyclops, Chimera, Hydra, Harpy, Python, Medusa, Giant, Pegasus, Phoenix, and many more. Although not all creatures cause trouble for the inhabitants, there are many that do cause a lot of trouble. With all these mythical creatures scattered through the land, it is just the perfect place for any monster hunter. Sovernyorn, freed by the thunder. In ancient times, this place was ruled by the dragons, and if you were not a dragon, you were a slave to them, serving them with food and treasure so they would not eat you and the people of your village. For many years the people of Sovernyorn lived in fear of the dragons, until that one godly night. Clouds were dark and thunder was roaring the sky. Then a huge beam of lightning struck the ground, summoning a massive creature. A gigantic electrical bear rose from the ground. This bear is a god named Voltar, god of courage, honor, and battle. With each step the bear took, thunder roared, getting the attention of the dragons. Voltar challenged the dragons to fight him till the death. The dragons, being so prideful, could not decline the challenge of the storm bear. When Voltar and the dragons collided, lightning began to strike down and storm began to brew. In the end, the gods stood victorious over many dead dragons, freeing the people of Sovernyorn. Then, Voltar vanished back into the skies where it came from. From then on, the people honored Voltar and praised him, inspired by his courage, honor, and spirit for battle. The people of Sovernyorn wanted to live like Voltar, always fighting for their freedom, without fear and with honor. Sovernyorn is the cold north of Orbis, a region of large snowy icy mountains and dense snowy forests. Sovernyorn is mostly inhabited by humans, but there's also a good amount of kobolds, Goliaths, orcs, and half-orcs. Most people live a typical northern lifestyle, with them living in villages and caring for the people in their villages. Most humans follow the way of Voltar, while most other races have their own beliefs. The kobolds in Sovernyorn believe that they are the ones that came from the bloodshed of dragons, and their goal is to avenge the dragons by killing the humans. This and a lot more other factors, like the cold weather and wildlife, gives most a hard time living in Sovernyorn. Sovernyorn contains creatures like mammoths, frost trolls, saber cats, remores, yetis, and a variety of giants, most notably the storm giant. Like the humans, they also worship Voltar and believe to be descendants from him. Storm and stone giants are the only giants that can live peacefully with humans. Not to forget, there's also a lot of wildlife, but only animals that can survive in cold temperatures, like the musk ox, Arctic fox, bear, reindeer, walrus, and many more animals that can live in cold climates. Groaza, the corrupted nation. Groaza is a dark place, quite literally. Its history is very unknown because of the current rulers, the vampire lords. Although the government of Groaza claims it is ruled by a human named Arasak. Even though no one believes the lie, they all live in fear of becoming the next bloodbag of the government of Groaza, also known as the Vampire Lords. The Vampire Lords are aided by a god known as Mendax, god of lies, trickery, and deception. Mendax makes sure the lie of Groaza goes into the mouth of any being, but Mendax and the Vampire Lords are no allies, for Mendax cannot be trusted by any mortal or immortal. With all this corruption in Groaza, there is still light of hope. In Groaza there exists an elite group of warriors that fight all the horrid creatures of the night. Their group is called the Night Slayers, and they are the only resistance against the government of Groaza, and the only hopes of people that live there. Groaza is a dark Transylvanian ambience. Dark clouds, sloppy towns, terrifying castles, spooky forests and scary mountains. Groaza is mostly inhabited by humans, tieflings and some Kenku folk. In Groaza there also exists a very unique race called a Dhampir, half human and half vampire. Most Dhampirs are born from a relation between a human and a vampire, or a human and another Dhampir. A Dhampir gets some benefits of a vampire, but also gets human benefits, like not burning in sunlight. Groaza has a lot of night creatures and stereotypical Transylvanian creatures like werewolves, ghosts, all sorts of undead, wendigos, and of course, vampires. Groaza also contains some normal wildlife like wolves, deers, bears, ravens, and a lot more forest-like creatures. Adlion, Nation of the Emperor. Back in ancient times, the perfect man was born, strong, charismatic, passionate, smart, wise, kind, and loving. He was a man named Adlion and was crowned the first emperor of the nation at age 7. He solved all civil wars and made peace and united the nation into one. At the end of his life, the people were afraid of losing their perfect leader, so Adlion made a promise. He said,
I, Adlion, emperor of this nation, shall in my death ascend to godhood and become god of this earth. I will create a heaven for the ones that honor me and my bloodline till the end of their lifespan, so their soul shall live with me for eternity in utter peace.
Till this day, the people of Adlion still live by his words and will punish the heretics that insult the true God Emperor. If you live in Adlion, you can only have one fate, and that fate is in the true God, Emperor Adlion. A direct insult at the Emperor will lead to a death penalty. Currently, Adlion is at war with the dwarven nation of Delvar, because one of Delvar's great leaders has insulted the almighty Emperor. Adlion is a variant biome. In the south is it a bit more desert-like, with some growth of flora. The more you reach the north it becomes more forest and mountain-like. Adlion is mostly inhabited by humans, elves and half-elves. Not every race is accepted in Adlion. These races can be any kind of race with a strong belief, especially dwarves and gnomes. The reason why the people in Adlion are very racist against these races is because they don't believe in the true god. Races like dwarves and gnomes are very blunt and insult the emperor without giving a care in the world, which makes the people of Adlion despise them a lot. Although not everyone that lives in Adlion has a strong or extremist faith in the emperor, they will still respect him. Outside of the cities and villages, there are no real big threats or creatures that can harm anyone, which makes Adlion a pretty safe place to live in. The only creature that is a bit dreaded is the native owlbear that lives in the northern mountains and in the southern canyons, which means that you have a northern owlbear and a southern owlbear. Besides those owlbears, there's just your standard wildlife. Delvar, home of the World Forge. Back in ancient times, Delvar used to be ruled by dragons, as the dwarves and gnomes were slaves to them. For many years they prayed for a miracle that never came. A brave dwarf named Durin was done with seeing his people being used as food and slaves, so he had a plan to forge a weapon that could slay the dragons. But no material was powerful enough to pierce through the titanic skin of a dragon. Durin decided to find a material that could crack the dragon's skin. He searched across the lands, inside the mountains and hills. Many called him crazy and insane, for there was nothing that they could do against the dragons. Because the other dwarves doubted him, he made a promise. Durin said,
"Today I will start digging, and not stop until I find something that can pierce through the dragon. And I will not come out until I've done so. Mark my word!"
Durin was then gone for months, on the verge of dying to either dehydration, starvation, or the lack of energy. But his strong will and spirit finally led him to the miracle he was searching for. He digged so far down, he found the core of the earth. Within that core, there was the godsmith named Zor. Before Durin could ask for help, he collapsed to the ground, losing his life. Zor admired Durin's dwarven will and decided to help the people of Delvar. With his mighty smithing tools and world forge, he made legendary equipment. Zorn left the World Forge and rose up and gave the equipment to the people in Durin's name. The dwarves of Delvar would then fight in honor of Durin. They slayed the dragons and freed Delvar. Then they would create a fate around Durin and Zor to honor and thank them. Nowadays their fate is really important, and none should dare take that away from them. Unfortunately, Adlion now wants to do that, resulting in a war between the nations. The nation is full of mountains, with some dense forest in between those mountains. Delvar is mostly inhabited by dwarves and gnomes. Dwarves work really well with gnomes, especially the rock gnomes, since they are great at making inventions. Other races than dwarves and gnomes are very uncommon, but dwarves and gnomes are always very hospitable towards travelers, as long as they are nice and respectful to them. In these big mountains there exist some scary creatures living in between the rocks, like the infamous Umberhulk, Behir, and the enormous scary purple worm. You also have a lot of animals living on the mountains and in the dense forests, like the mountain goat, boar, bear, yak, and many more animals that can survive in cold big mountains. Saxa, the buried island. Saxa is an island that used to be part of Delvar. It used to be nice and quiet, with small villages, happy gnomes, dwarves and halflings. Everything changed when a rich gnome named Owin from Delvar came to Saxa. Owin was a man that was very talented in the arts of science, magic and technology. He made all different quality of life inventions and wanted to introduce some of them to the folks of Saxa. That was the plan, until he made a crazy discovery. Underneath the Saxon ground lay these abnormal gems that were living. This living gemstone was so incredibly magnificent that Owen decided to dedicate his life to this gem. He bought the entirety of Saxa and forced the people to live in Delvar. He used the entire island to make a giant research lab and factory. With the war brewing between Delvar and Adlion, Owen decided that he wanted to make a sentient soldier with these living stones. Muscles of wood, skin of metal plating, eyes of reflecting crystals, magic used as nerves and connections throughout the body, and the living gemstone as the heart and brain. Owen's creation was a great success, and so he would create more of them, with all different war purposes. He called them the Warforged because they were forged for war against Adlion. The Warforged learned quickly and were very loyal towards their creators. Owen was not completely satisfied yet with his impressive creations, so he tried to make a gigantic golem that would tower above the clouds. If this became a success, he could end the war in Delvar's favor in an instant, and he would be the great hero. His science, magic and technology professors tried to warn him that the project was too dangerous and insane and could not be realistically done. Owen did not listen to them and proceeded, resulting in something he might regret. A few days later there was news that the whole island of Saxa had collapsed, and all that was left was just wastelands of rocks and stone. Owen, his workers, and the Warforged were never heard from again. They were all buried beneath Saxa. Saxa is now a complete wasteland of rocks and stone with no sign of life. One of the workers that escaped from the island claims that the Warforged are still there, for they cannot die unless the gem is destroyed, but none has seen come any out of the rocks so far. The occasional seabirds are seen at the shore, for no other life is seen at Saxa. These were all the main nations, lands and countries in Orbis. There are still 5 main places left that I will give quick mentions. These are the seas Mare, Beryl and Darkwaters, and islands Yuclayria and Valorian. Mare is the big open sea, populated by the occasional sailor and by sea creatures that survive of the sea. This sea is also a big mystery, for nobody really knows what could be hiding in the depths. Beryl, or as many call it, the home of pirates. Beryl is such a perfect place for pirates because of 2 main reasons. The first, being in the middle of almost every country and nation, seeing a lot of travelers and traders passing by to loot and rob. The second reason is because of all the small islands the sea has, giving the pirates home without any nation ruling over them. A pirate's life is a life of freedom, to do and whoever you want to be. That is why there are so many different kinds of pirates living in Beryl, with many different ideologies and ideas. Not everyone in Beryl is a real pirate. There are also some islands with villages and farm people. Many still consider them to be pirates because in their eyes they are not bound to any nation and live free, making them a pirate. Darkwaters. Darkwaters is a sea that is consumed by the Shadow Isles and is covered with thick black mist. Most that dare to sail through dark waters never come back. Nobody really knows what entities lay beneath the still dark waters, and perhaps nobody will ever find out. Yuclayria. Yuclayria used to be owned by a powerful vampire named Claudius. Claudius got killed by 4 holy warriors because he was killing the innocent living in Yuclayria. Yuclayria is now a nice and lazy place, although some people swear that Claudius will return one day to have his vengeance on humanity. Valorian is a nice lazy island with a lot of farmers. There's not much going on this island at the moment, but something exciting might happen in the future. You never know. Now you know the common knowledge of the world of Orbis. All this information may be very overwhelming, so feel free to go back to certain parts of the video if you like. Also, you don't really have to know all the information right from the start. Just make sure you know the information about the lands, countries and nations where your campaign takes place. Now the great question is, where in Orbis are you from?